Hello, everybody. Welcome back. All Nicked Up. It is April 5th, 2023. This is a little bit weird for us because normally we wouldn't start the show until after the game, but because the Knicks have clinched, this game really doesn't have much meaning. So the game is on. We are watching it, but we will be doing the show in spite of it regardless. So let me bring the guys in. I'm not going to sit around and talk too much. Craig and Ty, everyone's here.
Yo.
Hello,
What's going
everybody.
on, gentlemen?
Not much. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm all right. It's been a minute since we've been here, but we're back.
A little bit of time. We're back.
We have returned. So, sorry, my throat's a little scratchy. Yeah, so I was just explaining to everybody that the game is on. Normally, we would not be on until after the game.
Mm-hmm.
But because of the game doesn't really mean anything anymore, we were like, we can kind of watch it in the background and then just talk about everything that's going on. So, first, though, how are you, gentlemen? How have things been? How's everyone's life? Everything good?
On my end, I don't got too many complaints. I never complain. I don't got no rabbis. I tell people. So life is good.
Yes. And Craig, I know you've been having a rough time lately, but how are you doing?
I'm doing. I am doing all right, man. I'm just adjusting to a lot of things, and it's going to work itself out. Trying to be positive.
All right. So that's good. So yeah, me too. Just been a little busy. I got family stuff going on, and so the days seem to be some of my days recently have kind of just rolled into one another. So I feel like last week I believe it was Thursday, and all day I kept thinking it was Tuesday for some reason. I don't know why that was the craziness, but I was like, what the hell day is it? So yeah, it's been a little crazy. But the good thing, we have some good craziness to talk about, which is the Knicks have made the playoffs. So right?
We're back in.
That's a good thing. I've said it this way, pleading the fifth, because they've also clinched the fifth seed.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So
1,
they
2,
have
3, 4, 5, 5th.
we are pleading the fifth. Yes. This is kind of, this one feels legitimate. Like a couple years ago when they weighed the fourth seed, I think we all kind of felt like it was a little bit of fool's gold with that going on, right? But this one feels legit because of the nature of the season, how it started, and how they had to kind of adjust their game a couple times. And we've beaten on the coach plenty this year, but I have to give him credit. He got them here, changing the going to the 9-man rotation at times has been a little bit of a head-scratching decision. There have been games where you're like, he has a deeper bench, why not play some of those players? But overall, I memean, he's done a pretty good job. So here, I'll clap for Tibbs right now. Give him a little clap.
Give him his flowers. Give him his flowers.
he deserves that one. But I'll just put this out there for either of you guys really quick. Are you surprised they're the fifth seed?
Ty, you can go first.
I don't think I'm surprised after they got Hart. Once they brought in Hart, it just seemed like it just clicked. I mean, that was the kudos to both the coach and the front office in understanding what they needed to make their system work, whatever system it was. I never knew what it was before they started winning, but I'm going to keep it a buck. But pretty much, I mean, Josh Hart, I just started seeing a whole different team. They were rolling different. And, I may mention there was a point because, I've not been always positive about the team, but there was one point I'm like, they can be pretty scary if they can continue what they were doing. And they were a juggernaut during that time where they were starting to win legitimate games on that streak. The earlier season streak I didn't buy because I knew there was certain asterisks that where players were out. You caught Utah, coming off a long road trip. So there were little nuances you could just add into them not being as good, or catching teams, not at their best. Even the Cleveland win at one point, it was, they came in, they shot bad. They were coming from Brooklyn. It's the little things you can add on to why they were winning certain games. But then when Hart came along, I guess he brought Hart. I mean, literally, he brought more heart to the team pun intended. Where he just basically just injected something into the psyche of these guys that said we can win. We're going to go out every night and prove that we are, I mean, he came in, Eric, I was big on the whole light skin vibe. I was like, with the light skin vibe about you from New York and all that stuff.
Yes.
I'm like, and I was a fan of his. I said when he was in Portland, I said he would fit good on the Knicks. Little did I know this whole background about Tibbs, writing him Valentine cards and all this stuff. So I had no clue about any of the et cetera with Josh Hart, but I always thought his rebounding was just very unique for being a guard and being, getting 8 boards. That's ridiculous, in this league. So, but yeah, it didn't, if he had came over earlier, I think they could have maybe had the 4th seed. I mean, I think it's feasible to say, whatever it is that he's doing, right up until this point, and even the games like recently, like I said, the right break in the first round, I don't know. I'm tossing it up.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely how I look at it too right now. Where they're at the 5th seed. But Craig, what about you? Are you surprised they're here?
No, I mean, I want to steal that from Ty. No, I'm not surprised they're here after the Hart trade. I think that's a great point. The only thing I would say is history can repeat itself. I remember that there were years where the Knicks would beat up on the Raptors, right? And then in the playoffs, they came and they beat us. Was that 2001? They beat us, right?
Yeah,
so,
Vince Carter. Yeah.
Yep, VC. Yes, right. And if you look at Atlanta 2 years ago, same thing. We beat them up in the regular season, and they came back and beat us up in the playoffs. So unfortunately, I hate to be a negative Ned, but I feel like that's going to be the case in this round. I mean, in the first round of the playoffs, I feel like Cleveland's going to beat us. But I am not surprised they were here, especially after making the Hart trade.
Yeah, I mean, I think I remember their win total they have now. I think I said was what I thought their peak would be. So I mean, if they don't win any more games, I mean, I hope they do. I know they don't mean anything now, but I obviously hope they do. But if they don't, then I can be like, okay, I got the I have myself on the back a little bit for this one. But I am a little surprised they are here, even after the Hart trade. Although, like, I agree with everything you guys said. Like, he's the perfect glue for this team, right? He's kind of that glue guy, brings everyone together, very easy to follow. He's a leader. He's clearly a leader out there on the court. Guys look at him and follow his lead just for the way he plays, sets a good example. And I think that's kind of what he's done. They were trending upwards when they got him, so it wasn't like this was a total thing, but he kind of was that last piece that got them at least to the 5th seed. But I still thought we would see some of that inconsistency that we had seen all season. So even after the trade, I was like, it's good. I'm going to wait and see what it does. But I did not expect them to be the 5th seed. I kind of thought I think I remember saying 6, 7. 6 was as high as I thought they would get, and I mean it's close, so whatever. But the thing I'm happy about is they're not in the play-in, right? They're actually in the playoffs. They don't have to play in the play-in game, so that's something that is positive. And they are definitely playing the Cavaliers now. We know. The Cavs are locked into 4. So, I mean, could you ask for any better theater than that?
No.
With everything that happened over the summer with Donovan Mitchell to be playing them in the first round.
The NBA it's just built into their genetic code, right? They're the most dramatic. There's no other league I can think of, maybe besides the NFL, where it doesn't matter. There's always a plot line or a twist in there that just makes something interesting, because people are going to be watching this, right? They're going to be watching this series.
Oh yeah,
and they're really going to be interested to see what happens. So. No, I mean it is.
Well, our favorite clown has already said that the Knicks can't lose to Donovan Mitchell at the Cavs, right? You know what I'm talking about. Our favorite clown.
Yes.
Here he goes. Rocket the you know what.
Dude, man. He said it again, I think yesterday. I think when the things were said, I think he said on First Take, he said it again, that they can't lose to the Cavs and Donovan Mitchell. I'm like, I mean, why not?
I mean, when you think about it, the Cavs are statistically the better team, so it wouldn't be a shock that a fourth seed beat a fifth seed. So it's not like the Knicks are the fourth and the Cavs are the fifth, and now you're going, well, you can't lose to Donovan on your home court. Then I might buy a little bit of theatrics that he's doing, but I mean, yeah, the storyline is there obviously, but I mean, this isn't really about the Cavs versus. I mean, it's the Cavs versus the Knicks more so than Donovan Mitchell. I mean, in that case, Jalen Brunson has burned him in Utah, and he just burned him. Sent that burn notice the other night. And so if you want to make a battle, the battle probably, if you want to do the headlines, is that the Knicks ascertain Jalen Brunson and not Donovan Mitchell.
Right.
And so the matchup is those two guys, basically, who was the better fit for the Knicks? Was it Jalen Brunson or would Donovan Mitchell have been the star we needed? Because right now Brunson's not second to Donovan Mitchell. I hate to tell people that, but athletically he's second, but he's not.
Yeah.
Donovan if there's anything, Donovan has to prove he can beat Jalen right now.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think because of what happened, obviously, in last year with Dallas and Utah, I totally agree with that. I think that right now, Mitchell's the one that has something to prove for the things you said. They have the higher seed, so they're the ones that is expected to win. Mm-hmm. And he kind of has to, be like, hey, last year was a fluke, or at least win this to be like, okay, we're even. Something like that, because you're right. Athletically, he's not as good as Donovan Mitchell, but production-wise, they've been about the same, right? Yeah. Like, you can't really – it didn't start out that way. I mean, Brunson's been great all year, but the way he's played, I want to say the last month and a half, even being injured and then battling through the injuries and coming back from the foot, I mean, he's been fantastic. So it's going to be a fun matchup. Craig, we haven't gotten into the nitty-gritty yet about the series, and we'll break it down in the future as it goes on, but anything specific you're looking for from this series right now? Just an early preview?
This is going to sound very dark, but I'm torn between I'm torn between them getting swept and then going set. Or is it a 7-game series for them?
7, yeah.
I'm torn. Because if they go to 7 and they lose in Cleveland, I'm going to be heartbroken. If they're swept, I'm going to be embarrassed. So maybe, what would it be? If they lost,
you want to go 5 or 6? You want to go 6?
Yeah, I'll take 6. Because they can still win. They can still win in Cleveland. They can get one at home. They can still win in Cleveland. I think that should be it. I know I sound like a weirdo, not thinking my team is going to win, but I just don't trust them. Right? And history is history, right? It's not often you'll beat up on a team 3-1, 4-1, whatever the case may be in the regular season, unless you're really, really good and locked in where you can go in the playoffs and then be able to win in Cleveland. Would they have to win in Cleveland what? They have to steal at least 2 in Cleveland to win the series?
No, they just have to win 1 and then hold court at home. But Cleveland has been, I think their home record is something ridiculous. Like, they have a ridiculous home record. So it's going to be tough to get one there. But they just did, though, right?
Yeah, so, I know. I don't know. Something I just don't think they're there yet to win a series, to be the lower seed. I don't know.
It's fair. I mean, that's a very fair statement. They're not a battle-tested team, obviously. Only a few of these guys, the battle-tested guys on the Knicks aren't playing. So it's a little bit of a difference. But what about you, Ty? Do you have any things you're looking for in this series? Anything just early preview from afar, type of thing?
I think the first game dictates everything. I know usually they say the third game. I don't think it's third. I think it's the first game. If the Knicks come out and stomp the yard in the first game, the Knicks are probably taking this series. And the thing that people are talking so much about Cleveland they don't have any experience either. It's Donovan Mitchell. Mitchell.
That's a good point.
They're a very young team too. They're going to have some deer in the headlight looks. You know who they have? Karis LeVert, that's one of their veterans. Ricky Rubio's another veteran. I mean, how much are you going to really play them is the question. How big are their roles? Kevin Love no longer on the team, so that veteran presence is not there. When them cheeks start getting tight, start making some diamonds out of coal. What's going to happen? When the sphincter muscle get a little tight. When you look at the Knicks, they have been in the playoffs.
Yeah.
RJ's been in the playoffs. Emmanuel Quickly's been in the playoffs. Obi Toppin in the playoffs. Clearly, Julius Randle has been in the playoffs. They're the young guys on the Knicks have gotten some experience with the intensity level at least of what it takes. Not saying that gives them an advantage or disadvantage. I mean, they got a gentleman sweep, from Atlanta, so it's not like they, had a deep run or anything. But when you've heard the players talk, like Emmanuel Quickly and RJ Barrett, the two of the younger people on the team, they said we want to get back into the playoffs. Realizing that maybe their performance was lackluster, or they didn't have the edge that they needed, or clearly they weren't prepared. But you've heard RJ say at the beginning of the year, he said we're going to shock the world. So clearly they weren't thinking playoffs. They were thinking about having a deep run in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Where Josh Hart echoed that same sentiment about they want to we're not just coming in to get in. We want to do some work while we're here. So I think it's really a toss-up series that will probably come down to our favorite guy, which is Julius Randle. I think if you limit Randle from being too much Randle, the Knicks have a great shot. But it will come down to the front court. It's about the rebounding game. If they allow Afro Samurai to get loose and become an intimidator, and you got Mobley, I mean, he's really been negated in a sense since Donovan Mitchell has come. Have you seen Evan Mobley compared to the Evan Mobley before Donovan arrived? He was a budding superstar level kind of young talent there where you go, wow, this guy's got an amazing skill set. What will he become? Now he's like more of a role player, I hate to say it, in the sense that he's there to do kind of what Mitchell Robinson does for the Knicks. I think the guy probably can be a 20, 25, 10 couple blocks dude, I guess, if the offense was centered around him. Then you got to wonder about shooting on Cleveland. I mean, who's the shooters? Garland has been negated. People have brought his name up. He was terrible in the Garden. He has not brought any smoke while we played him the last time. He has just not been that guy that he was that All-Star the year prior. I didn't see that guy this year. So, yeah, I mean, they had the team last. I mean, you look at the game they just played, the Knicks were minus Julius Randle. They were minus Julius Randle, who's their biggest cog, if you want.
And they didn't have Allen, right? So they were missing Jared.
They didn't have Allen, and they didn't have a Okoro.
But they still should have. They still should have. But theoretically, they still should have beaten the Knicks, though, right?
Well, I mean, it was a close game. It wasn't like it was a blowout. I mean, the game was close.
Yeah, it was close. But a star like I'm thinking that most people are thinking like Donovan Mitchell is the guy better than every Knick. I think if you were to put a gun to people's head, they would say, "Oh, the Knicks don't have a Donovan Mitchell." Well, yeah, and we beat you. And Brunson, for all it's worth, I said this about that dude before the Knicks signed him. He was like, "Well, I don't know if he's worth maybe the dollar they wanted." Obviously people are going to always say you overpaid in this league, but that dude ripped through the Western Conference until he got to Golden State. He burned Donovan Mitchell. He burned whoever was in Phoenix playing him. It wasn't and he did pretty, from what I understand. Statistically, he was one of the better players against Golden State on the whole Mavericks team. It wasn't him that was the problem. It was the rest of the team that couldn't bring it. So I would not count out Jalen Brunson right now for nobody in the entire league, because he just seems like he's just locked in, and I don't know. I mean, it's like he didn't take the contract and sleep. He was like, well, I got a lot to prove, and people have doubted me. And then you look at this guy's resume; he's got a pretty nice resume. When you look at it from his high school years to his collegiate year, and now in the NBA, to know his first time was that the first year he started? Was last year with Luka?
It was he only started in the playoffs because Luka was out.
And see what he did when he decided when they started him. Because I watched that series and I said, wow, there was no reason for me to think that the Dallas Mavericks had a chance once they had Luka went down, like they're getting swept. I mean, and to know that Brunson was like, nah, I got some plans, and y'all going home, and he sent them dudes packing. And Donovan Mitchell had absolutely the better team at that point too. So I don't know. I mean, the question is, who do you choose to lead their team better, Donovan Mitchell or Jalen Brunson? That's really what it comes down to. Who will lead their team as the lead scorer and the lead bucket getter and the mental aspect of how you win games? Who do you trust more, Donovan Mitchell or Jalen Brunson? Mentally, I'm trusting Jalen Brunson more. Now, the game in itself, physically, Donovan Mitchell clearly can go for 50 whenever he feels like it.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with you about the mental makeup of Brunson, how he's won at every level. You know, he was College Player of the Year. Like, he has a lot of things to look back on and a lot of winning in his past to be like, I've been here before. That's why I don't think the moment's ever too big for him, right? Like, last year, slid right into that role, was the main guy when Luka was out, and he balled. He was great. So he's definitely that kind of player. And you're right. It's those two guys are the guys for each team. Like, we can talk about Randall, and we will in a little while, but those two guys clearly are the engine for each of their teams. So it's going to be that's the matchup you need to watch, and then everything else surrounding the other players.
Yep.
So, like you talked about Mitchell Robinson versus Jared Allen. That's going to be a big matchup for both teams. Allen is definitely better right now. We can't say he's not. He's a better player than Mitchell Robinson. But Mitch has been playing really great recently. So, which guy are we going to see? Are we going to see that guy? That would go really big in the Knicks' favor. Then you have you mentioned Garland, right? So we have Darius Garland there. RJ Barrett. There's even a storyline there because Barrett was picked one pick before Garland, right? So you have that little storyline going on there. That going on. It's a lot of drama built into this series. And then, like we said, on top of everything that happened over the summer, where everyone thought Mitchell was going to be in New York, and at the last second, the Cavs come in and
I'll add another one to that. Obi Toppin should have been a Cav because where he played, and Okoro ended up getting drafted there also. So that dynamic is, people thought Obi was a shoo-in to go there, and Okoro got picked.
Yep. So it's going to be an interesting series. Very, very. I think it's going to be a fun series. It's going to be fun for the fans, definitely for sure. Really quickly, the Knicks are winning 138-126 over the Pacers with about 50 seconds left or so. So it looks like this will be another one in their win column, and they'll have 47 wins. We're going to talk really quickly and go through a few things. First, let's quickly go through Randall's injury. Okay. We haven't been on since I don't think we've been on since he's got hurt. No. So if they're calling it an ankle injury, when it's usually this long, it's usually a high ankle sprain. Mm-hmm. So unless it's something worse, we never know with the Knicks. So he's supposed to be reevaluated next Thursday, the 13th. That'll be the 2-week point from where that. And it's not that he's going to be coming back. He's going to be reevaluated, right? So if he's not healthy, he might not be coming back for the playoffs. He might be out. So that's one thing we need to, talk about and be prepared for because, as Ty, you always joke with the Knicks medical staff, we never really know what's going on. So you always joke around with the medical staff. So I agree with you. It's always these phantom things that's supposed to be 2 weeks that end up being 2 months.
Yeah, I don't know about this one.
So I don't know. It looked bad when it happened, right? Like
it definitely looked bad. I mean, I've never seen him like. I mean, he's a tough dude. Randall's no punk. I'll never say he acts like a punk, which is the worst thing about it. His behavior is like a punk, but he's not a punk though. You know, it's so weird with him. It's just such a weird thing with him. But when I saw him go down, and I saw that, I said that's an ouch. And that was a bad one. That must have been pretty bad for him to limp and then look like he just was ready to get out of the game, like what they said, like a scalded dog. Basically, he had that look like a scalded dog, you know, like you know. And I know he looks like he has a great pain tolerance. I mean, the guy's been an Iron Man all season, you know, not missing any games, which I'm going to show he's nicked up a lot. No pun intended to nicked up, but I'm going to show he has been. Yeah, I'm not a believer that he's coming back in the first round, the early parts of the first round. That's just because I have no faith in the Knicks medical staff and their assessments. But that ankle looked pretty bad. And I think if it was not as bad, I think he'd be back by now. So knowing what kind of player he is, the toughness he has always exhibited, I think he would be back if it was just a sprain. I think it's way worse. I mean, I thought he had broke something, to be very honest, when I first saw it. I thought it was a fracture or something. And then that's when when we talked about the injury, I'm like, he might not be back. He might be out for most of the first round, I think. I mean, it's on the table. It's the Knicks medical. It's on the table.
You're 100% correct. Like, it's definitely on the table. It's definitely something I could see happening with this medical staff. Not only we don't trust the staff, but I don't trust the team to tell us what's going on anyway.
Yes.
So we have throw that whole thing into it. But it's been it didn't look good at all, like you said. It looked very, very bad. At first I thought originally he did something to his hamstring too, because he was kind of holding it. Kept rubbing the back of his hamstring and his leg. So I was like, oh boy, this is more than just the ankle. And it could be. Like, they could be saying the ankle, but we don't know. So, Craig, does your outlook for them change if Randall can't play? Let me put it in the playoffs.
I still think they lose. I mean, I still don't see them getting swept.
Do you think they lose worse, or do you think they could do what they could compete without him and it'd be the same amount of games regardless?
I just don't think they can compete with him, because all they're going to do is just load up on Brunson, right? And then that takes away another option for the Knicks, right? I mean, I guess in the regular season with this last game, they probably didn't adjust, but isn't that what good coaches do, especially in the playoffs? They will adjust
that's true.
If your best player is out, they're just going to load up on Brunson. They're going to put Okoro on Brunson, and then or they might put Mobley on Brunson. Who knows? They're going to put somebody with long arms, athleticism on him. They might put Karis LeVert on him. And then they're not only put that person on, they're probably going to send a double, right? So you're automatically going to take Brunson out of the game. And we've seen when you put long players on him and you double him.
Yeah, that's fair.
Not that he gets flustered, but it's just like he just doesn't acclimate well. And then who do you have left? RJ? I don't trust RJ.
We're going to talk about him in a little bit.
All right. So that's my answer. I don't think it'll make a difference.
But there's another guy who has been balling the last two games, and of course I'm talking about Obi Toppin. Now tonight, Obi had 32 points, 6 assists. The rebound really bothered me, but it is what it is.
That's the thing for me with him.
Only 3 rebounds, but that's following up a 21-point game that he had against Washington the other night. And he's shooting 60% from the floor in his 2 starts. Now, he did this last year, right? Obi, towards the end of the season when Julius was out again last year, Obi got a chance to start, and he averaged like 22 and I think 7 and, So, yes, he's not going to give you the rebounding. We know that. For some reason, he just doesn't do that as well. I have no idea why. But now that we have Josh Hart, it bothers me less because Hart rebounds well. So I'm kind of like, if they're in the game together, But do you think on Toppin's his style of play gives the Knicks a different look in the playoffs that Cleveland might not be ready to see or not be prepared for? Either one of you could take that. Ty, I guess you could take it.
First, let me just address the thing about Julius being out. I agree with what Craig's saying that they will try to load up on Brunson, but I'm like my little bit of kickback is they would just load up on Julius, and would you want that, or would you rather them load up on Brunson? And the reason why I'm saying that for is Brunson, I trust that if they're loading up on him, that he's going to still make the most sound basketball play. Now, whether the guys receiving the ball can complete those plays is obviously up for debate. Will RJ be able to shoot? Will Josh Hart make his shots? Will Grimes? On, so on and so forth with that. I just wonder if Julius is in the game, which is the biggest question mark. No matter what you go in this playoff, he's still the biggest question mark. So someone had brought up earlier this week or last week, and they brought up, they said, "Oh, we're missing Julius, and what's going to happen in the playoffs?" I said, "Well, isn't that the question mark? That even if you had Julius, what would happen in the playoffs? Because you really don't know how he's going to handle the pressure of these games. So he could very well, like, you want to say that a guy who's putting out those stats makes sense to have on your team in the playoffs because you're like, well, dang, the guy gets 25, 10, 5 assists. You remove that from a playoff team and there's no way they can win. That's the first avenue of thought, which makes a lot of sense when you think about it because you're missing that production. But he's shown that he can give you those numbers and still kill your team. He can still lose you games. So say a guy like Obi is now in the game. You see the pace of this team is picked up tremendously. The shooting aspect, a lot of off the bounce stuff is different. RJ's RJ. We know what the issues with RJ. We've got huge question marks about. But even though RJ has not been overwhelming, he's not cost this team games by being underwhelming because other guys are playing to their strengths. You got Quentin Grimes, who's now coming off the bounce. You got Emmanuel Quickly coming in the game and showing a whole different dynamic of, he's definitely 6-man candidate and a starter. He's legitimately like a starting caliber talent right now. So who do you trust more in this question? Do you trust Quickly more doing what he's doing, or do you trust Julius more in the playoffs doing what he did during the regular season? That's why I don't know how to buy that Julius will make us that much better by being in or that much worse by being in, given the mindset, because once the playoffs start, that's a whole different mental animal that we don't know if he's ready for. But I think Obi, that first year he got into there, when they were in the bubble, Obi was shining. He wasn't the moment wasn't too big for him. I don't think the moment will be too big for Emmanuel Quickly. It won't be too big for RJ. It won't be too big for Brunson. None of these guys are going to shrink right under pressure. If anything, you might see the best of all these players, including RJ, because I always say he's one of those dudes, he could have the worst game going, and all of a sudden he's won you the game by the time it's over.
So, hit a big shot, yep.
Big shot or big play or look like he's unstoppable, like he's Kawhi Leonard going in the paint, and you can't do anything about him. He's just been inconsistent and not as efficient. That's been his biggest issue, but we never saw a play of RJ maybe being the focal point and what he's capable of doing because he's a better passer than Julius. He has a better mindset for the game than Julius. So the points aside and the production aside, I can't definitively say the Knicks will be better with Julius, overwhelmingly better, but I can also say they could be just as worse, like if he's in the game. I mean, he's the toss. Yeah. He's the toss-up of the whole team. We talked about this guy for like 4 years in the most negative light, not because we think he's a horrible player. It's just mentally, this game gets revved up in the playoffs, and that's what we've always been talking about with him is, your regular seasons are great, dog, but what we're going to get in the playoffs should have everybody with a bubble in their stomach about how he's going to deal with the playoffs. The other guys, the game even watching tonight, you got these neophytes, as Walt would say, dudes are just after it. They're not like moments. They're not shrinking like our best players aren't here. Let's fold it up. They come out and if talent for talent, I mean, tonight there was no definitive star on either team.
They combined for 107 points between the three of them. I mean, I know you're playing.
Yep, Topping, Grimes, and Quickly combined.
You're playing a depleted Pacers team. I get it, but the Pacers are trying to win that game.
They're trying to win. Yep.
And
yeah.
I mean, 138 points.
I'm telling you, this team is better than people who might want to Knick. Because I know we're Knick fans, and we go, we can't trust it. I mean, we're like Public Enemy, so I can't trust it. We don't. I know. Trust. It's been a long minute. We all know. But look at Emmanuel Quickly tonight. 39 points,
26 shots,
6 rebounds, 9 assists, 14 of 26, and 7 of 13. He's over 50%. Period on all of what he's doing.
I know.
And you know, I've not been the biggest Quickly fan. He would have been on the first thing smoking, but the dude is turned. He's really turned the corner that Kevin Knox turned. he's really around the corner now. So, but it's like you look at him, and I'm thankful to be wrong about the dude.
I know.
Because you watch him, and I'm like, this dude's a legit player, NBA talent. I don't know if he's a starter. I still wonder about that. I like him in this role that if you need him to come in, he's becoming a fantastic combo guard. That's what he reminds me of, like a fantastic combo guard. I mean, think about it. What is Garland going to do against him if he got to guard him? Somebody got to guard quickly. That should be a nice matchup. That would be a really nice matchup.
Depth. I think that's where the Knicks will shine
Yep.
in this series. I feel like, especially now too, because these guys are getting more opportunities to start. Especially Quickly has been, because Brunson's been banged up. He's been starting more and been playing better. I feel like that Boston game on national TV for him was huge. Like he got the chance to show out. Obviously, the next game he was like 1 for 12 or something like that. but he got a chance to shine on the national stage, and that does nothing but build your confidence for a young player. You got the opportunity, and they won the game. So I think that was huge. But yeah, I mean, Craig brought it up. They combined for 106 points. You said
107.
107 points. Sorry, my bad. Shit. My bad.
No, I'm sorry. I just think it's crazy. 3 players, man. I mean,
yes,
it seems like that Golden State.
No, that was crazy. But the guy I want to talk about, the guy on this list is Quentin Grimes.
Yeah.
Dude, man, this guy has been unbelievable.
Thank me for that.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, I didn't do the stats for today, but I averaged out over the last 6 before today. He was averaging 21 points, shooting 52% from the field, 50% from 3, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, and a steal. And tonight, to add to that, he had 36 points, 4 assists, and 6 rebounds. So, I mean, this guy's been showing out lately. Another one of the young guys the first-round picks that we drafted, late first-round picks that we took, that the front office has seemed to have nailed. I mean, obviously, it's still a small sample size. You want to, you kind of want to see if he can continue doing this. But right now, this guy is locked in, and he's been fantastic.
Yeah.
I did not see this coming. I have to say, I did not see this coming. I had high hopes for him, but I wasn't sure how good he could be. But I mean, in this role where he's not asked to do a lot, and he just kind of meander and play and do the things that they need him to do from time to time, there's no pressure, and he's stepped up to the plate. So you see now all these things are starting to come together, though, right? Like at the right time. Like you just mentioned with Quickly, we talked about Quickly. Everything's coming together at the right time. So while I don't trust the team, I trust them more now than I did, say, last month. And I'm just hoping that they continue this ride as the pro season comes, and they're not peaking too early. That's my only question is that, are they peaking too early? But yeah, man, this has been fantastic to watch him specifically develop. You guys can take it from here. What have your opinions been on this recent surge by Quentin Grimes? Craig, go ahead.
Well, he's averaging. I'm looking at the stats now. He's averaging 10, basically 11 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, and shooting 46% from the field. This 36-point game definitely helped all of that. And he's just a legitimate Swiss Army knife. He's Josh Hart, but can actually kind of punish you on the offensive end. That's not to say that Hart can't, but he's a little limited in compared to what Grimes can do. He's a quick first step. He can get to the basket. He can draw fouls. He can take you off the dribble. He can post you up if you really. Now, if you imagine him adding a little bit of a post game to what he has now, he could be a legitimate. Trying to make a good. I want to make a good comparison here.
Do we think? I'll throw this guy out there because we just.
Please go ahead.
I was gonna say, do you see him as being a similar talent to Bridges with the Nets, Michael Bridges?
Bingo. Perfect.
That kind of a talent.
Yes. Now, I could not think of someone, but yes, I think that's a great comparison. I think he could be Bridges, not as doesn't have the natural length that Bridges has.
Right.
But he can do a lot of the things that Bridges can do. I still don't know if he's a better shooter than Bridges because Bridges seems to be automatic sometimes, which is very weird. But yeah, I think that's a very good apt comparison. I think he can definitely be a Bridges. He can be in that stratosphere. I think that I'm glad that the Knicks have him. I just wish he was a little more consistent because he can disappear. Grimes. There are times when he can disappear. He'll do other things well in the game that won't show up in the stat sheet, but he's not as consistent on the offensive end as I would like him to be. And that could be because he takes a step back because of because of Randall and Brunson and RJ. Mm-hmm. But I like him. I like him. Yeah,
like I think we're finding out that like growth in these players now. They're not. He was a guy. He was an upperclassman. He wasn't a young freshman that was drafted. He had adversity. He was a very high pick, highly touted prospect in high school. Mm-hmm. Didn't work out for him at Kansas. He goes to Houston, and things change, and he becomes a first round draft pick. Mm-hmm. And so, like, he's had to fight for things and change in his career already. And I just think he kind of adapts well. And when he gets it, when it clicks, this is what we're going to see. I don't know if we're going to see this forever, but we see what he can be when he's at his best, because this clearly is the best he can play. Ty, anything about him? Did you see this kind of thing coming from him? Did you see him as this kind of a talent?
I'd be lying if I said that I saw him as this kind of talent. But however, as I've been watching him, I think it was during the last summer league, and then, I do like. I'm an old head, so I really do like watching, and saying, what does this guy look like or whatever. Uh-huh. I brought up Mitch Richmond. He reminds me, if you were to go take Mitch Richmond's highlights, and if you could light skin him up, he's going to say, and give him a little high top fade, Quentin Grimes, a lot of his moves mimic a lot of what Mitch Richmond brought. Because Mitch wasn't the tallest guy, but they call him Rock because the dude was built. Strong, he's a very strong player. Had a great off the, dribble package and pull up. Was able to go to the rim. He had that, that sneaky athleticism, if you want to say sometimes. I think the thing with Quentin is having the role expand. I don't think nobody knows what he is completely because he's not. He's kind of latched into the starters who are heavy dribblers. It's not like he can cook. Yeah. Like, here's the ball, go cook. Like that, just on the highlight of him going up and dunking, off the bounce. When are you going to see that unless you give him the ball and say, go create something, or let's, spread the floor a little bit and let him operate in a better spacing. I don't think I could say that I saw this version yet, but I think you saw that the worst he's going to be was going to be a 3-and-D player. That was the worst he could be, and then hearing about, much like you said, him going from Kansas to, he was a high prospect. It wasn't like you got some scrub here. And sometimes he, it's like Mitchell Robinson and him are very similar in the sense of their stories. You have a guy who should have been probably a lottery pick, but fell way to the second round in Mitchell Robinson because there was questions about whether it was his work ethic or his desires or whatever. Could he make it? Same thing with Quentin Grimes. He didn't cut it out in a big program, so to say, with Kansas. So they send him to Texas, and they go like, well, they forgot how he still was one of the best talents in the country at the time. So you're starting to see a guy who, I love when they do those redraftings. Like, if you were to draft it now, this dude is probably definitely going top 15 if you were to redo that draft. He's not going to fall where he fell into the 23s. Because I'd like to see what those players are doing that were picked ahead of him. Because now this is looking like the greatest steal. Between him and Emmanuel Quickly are huge steals for the Knicks. And even Deuce McBride, when you look at him and these guys, Miracle Sims, the value of where they're picked and how their contracts are going to be structured to be able to keep these guys on cheap contracts. It's ridiculous. I mean, I got to give Thibodeau credit. This is one of his picks. Grimes was one of his picks. Quickly was one of his picks. But to his discredit, we weren't seeing these guys. So.
That's probably the biggest critique you could make. Is that it took him a while to finally say, okay, we have to play these guys because, that's the biggest critique you can make of why did it take so long, right? Like what did they gain, especially last year, right? When they were rookies, like what did they gain? They were a bad team. Why did they not just play these guys? Right.
Why is Alec Burks taking Emmanuel Quickly's minutes?
Exactly.
A guy that Thibodeau trusts is Emmanuel Quickly, and you said, let's just do Birkenbag. We're going to bring Birkenbag out there and let him. It's like this dude's been a career journeyman. But, I mean, not that Burks is a bucket, but it's like
he is.
You already know what he is. It's like, and he doesn't service you better to be a point guard. Whereas Quickly has played a combo guard position. He's, what is he, 6'4", 6'5"? So he's right around that point guard side. So, and he's got a good handle. If anything, you should have had him out there getting the rust off and making his mistakes. And we clearly see now that the mistakes have minimized and he's not posting up those ridiculous, NBA jam shots that he was throwing up that used to make me just want to go straight. Now you're seeing a guy okay, this looks like the floater guy that we first drafted, So it's like a little bit of these guys are coming to fruition. Grimes we have a legit bench. I know that might sound minimal to people, but it's like we've got some incredible depth on this team that's very young and very talented. We're the most talented Knicks team I've seen probably since '99, where those young, you had Camby, you had Spree, you had Houston, you had all those guys that had, it was a young, youthful team with talent, and you had LJ. I mean, unfortunately, he was injured. But you saw, we had more talent. We haven't had this much talent on the team in a really long time.
That is very true.
That's a very good point. But the sucky part is,
you can't keep them all,
No.
Especially if you want to make a trade for. Can you imagine in a perfect world if you could get Donovan Mitchell on this team the way it's presently constituted?
Free agency, that's always going to happen.
It's the only way it's going to happen. Can you imagine KD on this team? Presently constituted.
Okay, don't say something.
I'm just trying to make
it's all the room, Craig. Come on.
or anybody, or a Giannis, or a Devin Booker. It would just be outrageous the damage that he can do because for the first time, I'll shut up. Go ahead.
No, or a.
Oh, okay. All right.
Look at the screen.
I see it.
Luka would be a very interesting target to have.
Yeah, but Dallas is going to rob you too to get what they need if you want this guy.
They probably want picks. I don't think that we have. I don't think other than Julius, I think is who they would want. I think they would take him because Cuban loves former Knicks players for some reason.
Well, yeah.
He wants New York West. That's what he wants. So
they would need
no pun intended on the West there, Craig. But he wants New York West. That's he took Frank. I mean, the only person he didn't take was Nuts. I mean, he took every bag.
It's true, man.
Bag that we've had and said
Hardaway,
Ntilikina, Bullock, who would probably welcome back Randall because they're besties. So,
it's a homecoming for him too.
Yeah, the big thing, them taking Randall back, the big thing it would do is you need at least one big salary, right? For Luka, because Luka makes so much money. So you would need to have at least one big salary in the trade. Randall would be a good salary to have.
Yeah.
And Ty, you brought this up, and Craig, you just said it again. He's from the area. He's from Dallas. So that I think he would be part of the deal, but I do think we would have to give one of Quickly, Grimes, or Toppin. I think they'd want one of those three. They might want RJ. Like they're gonna want players as well as picks. It's gonna be some kind of huge package. And again, I put it here to talk about kind of. I know it's a pie in the sky scenario. It probably would never happen, at least not right now. But the reason I put it here is because Luka was asked yesterday specifically about Jalen Brunson and how, do they miss him?
That response, I'm sorry. I don't want to. You can tell the response, but I just want to laugh at it. It was the most coy. I'll shut up. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Say it.
No. Because you were setting it up, and I just robbed you. I want you to say.
No, go ahead. Say it.
No, please.
Say what you're gonna say, Craig.
It was the most coy, passive-aggressive, political answer one could ever give about how they fumbled the ball at the 1 inch line to have this kid. You could have had him. And we've spoken a lot offline about someone's response. I don't want to say it on here, but we've spoken about how one responded to how that situation played out in Dallas.
No, I don't know what you're talking about. You got to tell us. What are you talking about?
I can't tell you. Someone, when you ask, when I asked the person what happened
to
with
the plug.
And he said, well, hey, that wasn't on me.
Yeah,
so
it's the plug connect he's talking about.
So
yes. Okay.
Yeah. No, I think we've reached to a point where Luka's saying what the whole league is saying. And I've been talking about Dallas for a minute, and I said as much as Dallas has been this great beacon during Dirk's time, they won a chip during Dirk's time. But Mark Cuban has not ran that organization well post that championship years, in my opinion, because not only did he have he had internal turmoil going there. You got a legit generational talent for your franchise in Luka. I mean, we know his flaws and all that, etc. Your A1 thing should have been to make sure you had the right coach in place to coach him, and to make sure you at least get him one significant talent that you could keep, that he would be satisfied with and believe he can win with. And they have the coaching kid, and they had that player in Brunson, and to know they were like, their reason for not doing it was because they were cheap. That is the worst. I mean, because James Dolan would have paid, and he said he wanted Jimmy Snuka. James Dolan would have dug up Jimmy Snuka, put a Knicks uniform on him, and said, let me just let you dive dead off the rope. Because he would have done anything to keep Luka happy. And I'm more than sure Luka probably said to Mark Cuban, I want Jalen. And Jalen was like, they're late getting me the bag, which was supposed to be cheaper than the bag that the Knicks offered him.
Yeah, the year before, yeah.
Yeah, because he wanted it a year prior.
Yep.
The extension, they're like, no. And now, this guy goes out and balls out and clearly is one of the most improved talents in the entire NBA. And you might have him now going in the top 20 of the league, 25 of the league of talents. And Luka's sitting there like, you gave me Kyrie? Who may leave? It's not about Kyrie's talent, clearly, but he's out of there. He's not staying in Dallas.
I mean, his talent has never been the question. It's his mind.
It's everything but the talent.
Exactly. His talent-wise, he's probably a top 10 player, top 5 player, possibly.
I just want to take a minute to call out Max Kellerman. He'll probably never see this, but I want to call out Max Kellerman.
I'm gonna send it to him. I'm gonna send it to his Twitter. Go ahead.
I want to call out Max Kellerman for a second. After the Knicks traded KP to Dallas, it was around Christmas time, right? Mm-hmm. Max Kellerman on First Take, whatever the abomination of a show he was on with Stephen A. Smith, had Mark Cuban on.
First Take,
First Take, and he said to him, do you think you owe the Knicks fan base an apology for completely robbing them? Do you realize that no one, for the most part, on ESPN or even Max Kellerman will ever bring on, even though we know Rose and Dolan won't come on TV. Well, Dolan might. But do you think they would ever get the same respect or reverence that Mark Cuban would get?
I don't.
If you compare the situation that he dropped the ball and not keeping a player that would have made Doncic happy and had them be a better team than they are right now. Think about that for a second.
No, he
I cannot. I mean,
No, he never would because
but that's the problem. That's our problem with the media and especially ESPN.
no.
Because,
Well, him specifically, he hates Dolan. Like you guys think I hate Dolan. Max Kellerman hates Dolan on a level I can't even come close to approaching.
but he
Like,
owes so many people an apology.
It's like I feel like Max Dolan like robbed Kellerman or slept with his wife or something because that dude, yeah, like dude, seriously, it's some crazy like obsessive hate he has for this guy. It's nuts. But yeah, just back to the quote. They just basically asked Doncic, "Do they miss Jalen Brunson?" And this was his response. Oh, hold on. His response was a lot. That's what he said, a lot. And he goes, I mean, amazing guy, amazing player for sure. And Brunson, I mean, Doncic still, he doesn't speak the greatest English. He speaks good English, but like sometimes I don't know if he truly knows how to word what he wants to say.
Which is great.
Yeah, exactly. Because I didn't see his face. I wanted to see his face. Like I wanted to see.
Oh, I saw his face. I saw it.
Okay.
Wow.
And it was a coy smile. He had the hood up.
Right. Yeah.
And he's just like, a lot. And he was just like, and then obviously he said, obviously, blah, 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 blah. But come on, that's all. He could have just said, he's a good player. Yeah, anybody would listen. If he would have said that, no one would care. But the way he answered, and then the look on his face, people are going to run with it. And there's no fault of his own.
Well, he's like Zion when asked where you want to play. Was it that?
Yes, it was exactly like that. If you pull it up right now, Eric, and just watch it for yourself, you'll see. It was.
Well, I mean, obviously, I put up here this is kind of something I just want to have fun with because, like I said, it's a very, very long shot that it would happen.
Yeah.
But we've seen crazier things. Like we just saw 2 guys get traded who, with everything that happened with the Nets in the summer that they said they want to get traded then, they're like, no, we're going to stay. And then now they got traded. Like
disaster in Brooklyn.
Yep. And then with Harden last year, everything that has happened, it's all the Nets, right? It's funny that it's all the Nets, but it's still all the Nets. With everything that happened with Ben Simmons, players now seem to be, if they say something, they get their way. It just seems to be trending in that direction. Luka has not said yet he doesn't want to stay there, but he's dropping hints here and there. Like, look, you need to do right by me or I'm out. And I mean, as much as I love him as a player, I do think he's part of the problem. I'm not going to lie. I think the way he plays the game, you need to build a certain style around him. Mm-hmm. I think that his devotion to his fitness, he looked great over the summer. Remember, I showed that video of him playing.
Oh, yeah, he was cut.
And he looked fantastic. And now he looks like a fat roly-poly again. So
he became an American.
Yeah. So, those kinds of things. He's still a young guy. So, he still might be not mature enough to understand the level he needs to be at. Mm-hmm. But that's the other thing. Like, Jason Kidd, he was a great player, and I think he's a good coach. He's kind of a player's coach, though, in my opinion. Like, he's not going to – because being a former player, I feel like that's how he coaches.
Yeah, I agree with
we know Tibbs is not like that. So if they were to get someone like Luka, I'm sure Thibodeau, if he's still here, would be like, look, dude, you got to do this. I don't care how good talented you are. If this is what you want to do to be to play here and to be successful and get the most out of your team. So it's definitely a long shot. But man, when that Brunson thing came up and I heard his response, I was like, oh boy, this is not only are we going to talk about it, but wait to see what happens at the end of the season when all the fallout comes out, everything comes out. Mm-hmm. I can only imagine that this is going to be brought up again. So
I remember for me, I've always said I didn't think the Knicks were going to do the shot. I always said I thought he'd end up in LA. That's what I've been saying about him for the longest. I said I think he'll never finish in Dallas. I said I could see him going to the Lakers perhaps. But I think the thing is about New York, if you come to the Knicks, and even though we saw Julius do the same thing, I think players realize there's a different preparation you need to have if you're signing on for this what is going to be a ride through hell as an athlete if you are not up to standard. I don't think nobody ever questioned whether or not RJ Barrett works at his game. But if you let New Yorkers talk about him, fans looking at the stats. They don't even care about the stats. This is just a cosmetic thing for RJ because he has an ugly Wanda game. It's just not cute. So they blasted this kid. Like he's a bum. So I don't think that Luka could come here and put on the fat man suit, and hang out and talk about I'm not. Only thing I'm lifting up is some donuts, not no weights. I don't think he can come here and do that, whether it was Thibodeau, and especially not under Thibodeau. He definitely couldn't do it. So I think if he did ask for a trade here, he would know that there's a certain weight that comes on it that he can't lazy around like he is in Dallas. Because they're going to be on him. Dallas is not pressure. This is only view the Cowboys is that pressure because they're not a basketball city like that. But you come here to New York or Boston, Philly, LA, they're either about championships or making sure their players are committed to giving excellence. So I think he would fit great here because he would have to. I think he couldn't come here and slouch around, not play defense, not play an effort. I mean, when you look at it, it's almost like it's dysfunctional in Dallas. It's a lot of dysfunction.
Oh, it definitely is. So it's just going to be interesting to watch this as it goes this season. I did want to bring one more stat line from tonight's game because it was just phenomenal. So I'll put up there. It's right on the screen now, man. Yep. Holy crap.
I saw that when we were talking. I'm like, that's a beast right there.
Yeah. If he did that every game, he'd be an all-star and nobody would care. Nobody would have any complaints.
We'd probably be in the finals if he was. I'm being honest.
Very possible, yes.
If we put up those numbers every game, we'd be in the finals. I think we could. I mean, at least the Eastern Conference Finals, because he would give a dynamic that what we've been asking him to do.
7 block shots.
I could see. I'm going to go a little rant with Mitch. I love Mitch. It's not about. Mitch is a great pickup, obviously, where he was selected, homegrown. Love every aspect about him. But minus the blocks, I think that should be damn near his stats every game. It should be. You're getting paid. Your whole job is to block shots and rebound. There's no reason you are sub 9. What is he, 9 average on rebounds per?
I can look it up.
I think it's 9. If it's 9, there's no reason that your whole focal point is to block shots and rebound, and you're not leading the league in both categories. That's what your job is.
That's fair.
That is your job. Your job is he should be like what the kid is in I was about to say in Jersey, but in Brooklyn. Their center there. He's that young dude. I can't think of his name. But Claxton. He's like a menace when he's out there. Somebody should be afraid when they see Mitchell Robinson like, oh, this is going to be a long night. This guy, he should be better than the Time Lord, whatever they call him, in Boston. He should be only second to a guy like Embiid.
7 and 9.
7 and see, that's unacceptable. I'm sorry. That should be David Lee was a double-double. Are you serious?
Yeah.
With less athleticism. Not that David was a bum. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying, like, David's job wasn't to rebound and block shots. And Mitch is making only 9. He should be averaging at least 14 boards. He should be more like Rodman than anything. For this squad, he should be Rodman-like.
The weird thing about him is that he's I think either the first or second best offensive rebounder in the NBA, but the defensive rebound isn't the same, right? Like that's no strange thing. I never understood that. I'm like, why is it you should be better on that end, in my opinion, on the offensive end? But I've always said he could be like Rudy Gobert. I feel like he can be that kind of a center. I don't know if he'll ever be a big-time scorer, but he definitely could be the rebounder and shot blocker that Gobert is. So, but this stat line, I could not let it pass. That was just a phenomenal, dominant performance.
It's supposed to triple-double with blocks.
I know. almost a dominant performance there. So kudos to Mitch, man, because what a great game. Let's talk about the other guy. We touched on him a little bit before, Emmanuel quickly. So I have it here as winning the sixth. I had pleading the fifth. Now I have winning the sixth. Obviously he's here because I'm talking specifically about sixth man of the year. Now his main competition is Malcolm Brogdon in Boston. Their statistics are pretty similar, but let me do the difference between quickly as a bench player and as a starter. So he's played 60 games off the bench. He's averaging 12 points, 44% from the field, 35% from three, 80% from the line, 3.7 rebounds, 2.9 assists. Okay. And he's a plus 255 on the season. That's all the games. So they've been great with him on the floor. As a starter, he's played 18 games, 19 now. This is before tonight's game. He's averaging 21 points, 47% from the field, 38% from three, 83 from the line, 5.2 rebounds, 5 assists, and 1.1 steals. So clearly he plays better as a starter, right? Like I think we can say that with him. He's always maintained his desire to start. He said it publicly. That's not something that I'm making up or that you need to look up. You can clearly say like his goal is to. He doesn't say I want to start, but he's like my goal is to play and be the best I can be. And to me, that means you want to be a starter and an all-star and all that fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I gave you the reserve stats for him and the starting stats. Let me give now Malcolm Brogdon. He hasn't started at all this year, so that might weigh in his favor because they can say, well, he didn't start. He's come off the bench all year. He's been a true sixth man. But his stats, he's played less games. He's only played 65 games. But he's averaging 14.7 points, shooting 48% from the field, 44 from three, 88 from the line, 4.2 rebounds, 3.7 assists. So those are the two guys pretty much that are in the race for the sixth man. Boston has a better record, right? So you got to throw that into the mix as well. I'll ask you guys at point blank, who would you give it to? Craig, which guy would you give it to?
Quickly, without a doubt.
Okay. Ty, which guy would you give it
I don't even like Boston. Everybody knows I don't like Boston.
Right.
I mean, I don't want to. This is no quick bias about, my prior thoughts of Emmanuel quickly. In fact, I said I'm going to stop complaining about our players. I've been saying that for a minute. I'm like, it wasn't the players. I thought it was the coach. Now he's adjusted, so it's not that. I'm a little stickler to the rule. That's the only reason why I'm even making this. Brogdon has been a complete sixth man, and my one knock is it's been less games. That part I don't like, but he's always had issues with endurance and all that stuff. But if you're following by the letter of Detlef Shrimp, in this case where you definitively won't start and that your production has impacted your team's winning off the bench. And if any other place you would be a starter, that's what really the sixth man is about. Brogdon has been a sixth man, whereas Emmanuel has just been the better talent when starting. When a crease roll, Emmanuel, you would take over Brogdon, maybe Brogdon would give those same numbers. He's been an excellent player. He's just been injured. So the dynamic that he plays on the Boston Celtics, he probably would be a starter on another team. To be very honest, he was starting on Indiana, I think. I'm going to give it to Brogdon only on technicalities. It's not because of the production or, it's just Quick hasn't been – he's flourished. He's flourished as a starter. I mean, he's flourished when guys have went out. Now, to me, this is my pushback on Quick not getting it. Your numbers should be great and as efficient no matter when you come in the game.
Yeah.
So that is my thing. You shouldn't, because to me, it's like you're saying, I'm only going to play at this level when I'm starting. That's my mind on that. It's like you should be busting it every time that you came into the game with the same stat output as a starter or as a sixth man, because clearly you're in there as an Energizer Bunny. That's been your role for like the last 3 years. So you can't tell me that all of a sudden you get statistically better. You get more incentivized as a starter. That's my point. It's like you should be giving – if he gave those same exact numbers but say less points, then he's a legitimate stud and helping our team win more. Not that he hasn't won games for us, but I'm just saying, if you got steady that a guy coming in is going to shoot 14, 15 points a game, he's shooting at 50%, he's shooting at 40, whatever he's shooting, 40% from three, and he's getting the 2 steals. You are a starter, in a lot of ways. And, a team's going to come pay you like a starter. So it just seems like to me, like he does it to kind of say, look, I'm better than this guy. I should be starting, as opposed to saying, I'm just a great talent no matter where you put me. And that's why I'm going to, that hurts me to say Boston anything. It makes me want to throw up in my own mouth. But I'm going to give it on technicality to Brogdon.
Yeah, I would lean that way for a lot of the reasons you stated. And I just think consistency, right? Like consistency-wise, I'm not a Boston fan. I haven't seen all of their games, but when I have watched them, he's always played well. I can't think of a game I've watched them this season where Brogdon hasn't played well. So in my mind, I'm like, I think Quickly's been great. Like you said, it's been a growth year for him. He's been much better.
Yeah.
He's been much better as a starter. And some guys just are more wired that way. And that could just be how it is with him. Like, it's not a detriment. It's just something the way he's wired and the way he's built. But I would have to give it to Brogdon too. But having said that, I will not be surprised if Quickly wins it. Like, I won't be surprised if they give him the award because he has been, at least I want to say from probably like the second half of the season, he has been pretty good off the bench as well. He's been just good off the bench.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's just nice to be able to talk about a Knick and winning a substantial award, though.
Yeah. Well, if it's one thing the Knicks produced is 6 Man of the Years. So the Knicks have been very good with that. Starks, Anthony Mason, J.R. Smith. I think Starks also won 6
Starks won, yeah.
So
and Crawford didn't win it with the Knicks, but he went on to win multiple 6 Men of the Year when he left the Knicks.
So the Knicks have produced 6 Men of the Year, which is such a weird thing when you think about that. But I mean, I would love if Quickly won it because we've seen the growth now. And he's a Knick, so I'd love any Knick getting any award. I mean, Jalen Brunson probably is the most improved player. But
I think he's getting that. I think he definitely
should. Yeah, I mean, they're talking about Laurie Markkinen and I forgot who the other person. Oh, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Those are the two that are at the top. Shai's been
but wouldn't they factor in the success of the team as well?
I would think so. Well, that's the whole thing about the award. I mean, the one little caveat now that they're doing with the new CBA is that you have to play X amount of games to, be able to, ascertain an award at the end of the year for your prowess. But in saying that, it's like, to me, it's always been about winning. I think you should be winning.
Well,
and then, like it's like now, even when you talk about the MVP race, I mean, clearly this Embiid campaign is full throttle, but don't act like Jokic and Giannis, they're in the top of their conferences. It's not like they're like, if you gave it to them, it's like, oh God, you can't give it to these guys, but they're winning. Philly's in second and third place now. It's a great accomplishment, but I always think that there should be 2 MVPs. Like, I think it should be a Western Conference MVP and
that's how the NFL
Conference MVP. Because when you talk, how can you be the MVP of the entire league? Like that's like you would have to be carrying a league. And that's why that thinking to me was just very weird. Like you could be the most outstanding player of the league. I think that's what the award should be, the most outstanding player of the league, maybe. When you talk about MVP, I think it should be a conference. That's just my preference. I think it should be a conference.
Yeah, baseball. That's how baseball does it. You have an AL MVP.
AL and so, but winning to me means more than anything. The greatest winners always talk about winning, meaning more than any individual. I mean, Jordan, one of the greatest winners ever, and you hear him always say, the accolades take care of themselves as long as you're winning. And even Thibodeau, you hear him say, you don't worry about the individual award, worry about the wins, and all that stuff will come to you later. So, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I mean, what they're in the play-in, near the play-in or whatever.
Yeah, they're 10th right now. Yeah.
They're 10th, and Brunson is sitting, leading the Knicks, and I think he's been the MVP of the Knicks all year. And his team is in the 5th place. Does that factor in that he's one more game and his team is in a better position? But that's not to take away Shai's improvements. It's just, I don't know. I agree. I'm up in arms, Craig. I don't know if it's winning should factor into an improved player. I don't know.
The way I don't think Alexander should be in the mix because he's gotten incrementally better each year.
Yeah.
Like his leap this year is not as good as Brunson or Markkanen. I think both of those guys are the guys who should be the ones.
I agree.
Okay, hold on. Craig's hysterically laughing at something, so I want to know what you laughing at.
I'm sorry. I know we're talking about most improved player and Brunson, but this would be great. And I don't want to hang on it too long. But I just happened to be scrolling through Twitter because I got a notification for something else. And I said, let me scroll. Tim McMahon, whatever, for ESPN. McNugget just tweeted out, about 3 hours ago, tweeted, Mark Cuban is blaming Rick Brunson for the Mavs losing Jalen Brunson in free agency, saying, quote, things went south when the parents got involved, end quote.
He didn't say, he didn't go there.
I will say what Ty said before. Had you signed him last year,
you wouldn't have this problem.
Exactly. Wouldn't have had the problem.
And you know what that stems from, if I'm hearing the tea, well, looking at the tea leaves, the Lipton here, is because when they didn't pay Jalen, Rick has come out and says, well, he's going to get paid now.
Right.
And that's because they were soured by the whole idea that this dude comes, and in all fairness, I don't know if you guys had a chance to, I know Craig doesn't get Madison Square Garden Network, but the family business, the Brunson business is what it's called. It's a segment between, it's an interview Breen did with Jalen and
I saw a clip of it.
I saw a clip. I haven't seen
maybe you can find it on YouTube, maybe, but the moral of the story is him and his father are they're very close. Like to the point they're like annoying brothers to each other. That's really their relationship dynamic, it seems. He loves his father. And his father loves him, and they have a unique relationship that's probably most parents may not subscribe to, because it's definitely more of a sport relationship that's a love fest with those two guys. Jalen was going to listen to no matter what his father said because he trusts his father. He said his father basically, in a nutshell, whatever he's been is because his father always made him believe he could. So when you hear him, he's going, oh, he's going to get a bag. Even Jason Kidd said it. He's like, after Brunson was balling out, he says, well, I'm going to have to ask him for a loan because he's going to get paid this summer. So, and he knew he wasn't, because it was tongue-in-cheek. He's like, well, he's not going to get paid here, but he's going somewhere to get. This was the worst kept secret in the league that this dude was going. It wasn't like they didn't know. They knew he was going somewhere, and it was a likelihood it was going to be the damn Knicks.
So we've been talking about a lot about Dallas. So I'll throw this out there. As it stands right now, the Knicks would not be getting the pick, the Dallas pick. Now, it's a lottery, so that could change too. That's something we have to throw in there. So even though they wouldn't be in position right now, it's a draft lottery. Dallas does have the opportunity where they would not finish in the position they are, would finish it outside of it, 11, 12, 13, whatever, 14, 15, and that pick would convey. But the looks of it right now is if they do not win, and I know, Ty, you had some scenarios, so if you know what happened, you want to clear it up right now while we're talking, you can. But it looks right now like they won't be getting that pick or will be in best position to get that pick.
Yeah, I was just randomly saying, off the cuff about you would need a lot of help from OKC, and you need to win at least one of those games if you're Dallas. Right now, I think it's tied 92-92 against the Kings. The thing is that they would have to at least, I believe, win one game, and you need OKC to bottom out and lose two. And because I think OKC is in the 11th spot, Dallas is in the 10th, and I think it might be 2.5 games or a half a game or 1.5 games to separate the two on Tankathon. This is the last check. I haven't seen this in a minute. So.
Yeah. It's very close. You're right though.
Yeah, so you need them to lose out, and at least great if Dallas won 2 in a row and OKC lost 2 in a row, and then we're fine. But it does make you wonder now. You know, are they tanking now? You know, which is so funny to hear that a team with Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving maybe they're holding out players. I mean, the league.
They did play tonight. They did play tonight.
They did play tonight.
Those guys are playing, yes.
They're terrible as a couple, so that doesn't matter.
I know that doesn't make you feel confident. Yeah,
we need one of them to play without the other, and then it all works out great, you know.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that also we have to wonder and ask this question too. I'm a Doncic fan. I follow him on IG. Very few basketball non-league players I follow on IG or anywhere, and I do follow him because I like Luka's game. I like watching Luka play. He plays with such a joy. But you do got to start asking the question: who is Luka Doncic?
Yeah, that's what I said before.
If you can't make the play-in, you know, as the head of the Mavericks, and granted, I know their offense is way ahead of their defense. We know this. But we're in an offensive league. People don't play defense anymore like that. We play defense. True. Milwaukee plays defense. And who else after that? Cleveland plays defense. Boston plays. It's like, 5 teams out of 30 that play defense in the league? I mean, Miami.
The Warriors do.
The Warriors do. They probably have the greatest balance over the decade, how they played both offense and defense. But you can't be a superstar and not making the play-in.
Yeah.
You can't. You're Julius Randle then. I'm not being funny when I say this, but even Julius during the bubble took us to the playoffs. So I mean, he had some help. I'm just saying, but you gotta wonder. In a Western Conference is not as strong. I mean, it's not what people thought it would be. As the East is a little bit weak too, in my opinion. But you're a stud. You are one of the best top 10 players thought to be in the whole entire league. You should be able to get your team dragging and kicking and screaming into the 10th spot. Because what do you got to be? You got to be 9th and 10th at least to get to the play. Yeah. You know, you can't be one of the top 10 teams and you're one of the top 10 players. He's got a little Kyrie going on because Kyrie, in my opinion, I know what people say about his skill set. I know he's a dynamic player. I know he's one of the best. We've never seen people like this dribble before.
Talented, sure, yeah.
Talent, but he can't. He doesn't create a winning culture. That's the one thing about Kyrie. No matter when you put Kyrie as the main player, that team's gone. That team's done. He's not going to win you anything. He's going to make you great highlights. People are going to talk about his dribble package. You know, he's got the best handles and all this, which I don't never get enamored with his game like that. In my opinion, I've seen dudes handle the rock. I mean, I love Kenny Anderson, Rod Strick, you know, Pearl Washington. You saw. I mean, even if you watch the Point Guard documentary, there's some dudes with some sick handles. And I like Kyrie, but I'm not. You know, Rafer Alston, Sham God. These dudes got crazy handles. So I'm not enamored because Kyrie has a beautiful game, like whatever. I don't know what the hell that's supposed to mean anyway. But I mean, I take KD's game over Kyrie's game. In that sense, that's a beautiful game. What KD does is a beautiful brand of basketball. I mean, we can dislike his ashy ankles all we want. Call him Mr. Burner Man, like he's showering, Mr. Burner Man. We can do all that about him, but his game is a beautiful game to watch. That dude's game is like the gods built a basketball player like he's KD. Same thing I was thinking about Michael Jordan. He is Michael Jordan. These guys are just these phenomenal basketball, not only minds, but the physical gifts. They're meant to hoop their whole lives, So I don't get enamored with Kyrie's game, but to me, Luka is now in that same category. You brought along a guy like Kyrie, and you guys can't figure to outscore somebody. Yeah. Say you give away the defense. You got 2 of the best fourth quarter scorers. I think they're the top 2 in the league in the fourth quarter, and you can't figure out how to outscore Sacramento right now. I'm not knocking Sacramento. They're good this year. I'm just saying.
They're trying to right now.
I know. It's like you should be out there bombing, but Luka is a tough, like Eric said, Luka's a hard guy to play with when you're talking about building around because he pats the rock a whole 20-something seconds out of 20.
They're both similar players in this regard. Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like they're snobby on the basketball court. Like they both play the game like we know we're better than everybody. So
that's a good.
You just need to watch us, and we'll just do what. Like that's how I read them. And again,
I agree.
I agree with you. Luka's fun to watch. I like how he plays. I mean, Kyrie obviously too. There are things he can do. Sometimes you're like, wow, he's an exciting player to watch. Both of them are exciting players to watch, but. Yeah, they kind of have this mindset that, like, yeah, I'm the best, and I know it, and you just need to watch me do what I do, and it rubs off on the rest of the team. Like, you can tell that the other guys are kind of like, dude, we just want to win. Like, we don't care about all this other crap you guys got going on. Yeah, stop points.
We want to stop points. We want to dub,
Yeah, we just want to win. So it's very, very, they're very, it's interesting that they paired them together.
Yeah.
I remember when the trade happened, I was kind of like, we'll see how it works. Hasn't. And it was like right away too. I think like the second or third game, they're already like backbiting and the chatter was going on. I'm like, oh Jesus, this is gonna be so bad.
Shout out to my boy Jonathan Clark, who probably might be watching. I don't know, but it was funny when that pairing happened on his put two on me a page. He was like, oh, this is gonna be dynamite. I'm like, dude, this is like the kind of dynamite that like the Coyote had with the Acme. This is gonna blow the hell up in somebody's face. Is what's gonna happen.
This is Tayo Cruz.
And I'm like, I was like, I said, I'm just gonna sit back and watch the train. Like I said, Capricorns love watching train wrecks. That's what we love doing. I'm like, this is a train wreck of epic proportion because it's going to fail. So I guess I shouldn't be shocked that we are probably not getting the 10, 10 spot. But I mean, the pick, because this was destined to fail. Nobody had Kyrie and Luka in the Western Conference Finals. You're like, when are they going to blow each other up?
But when is Mark Cuban going to get torched for this? I can't.
I agree, Craig. I agree.
And again, I don't want to see anybody crash and burn because he took a shot, right? I get it. But like, they were giving this man roses when he traded for KP. They thought it was like De Niro and Tom Sizemore and Heat, like robbing the bank, and you know what I mean? Like nothing happened. And he's not getting the appropriate criticism that any other team outside of any other big market GM would get, especially the Knicks. And again, I'm not trying to be biased because I'm a Knicks fan, but the Knicks have deserved a lot of crap that they've gotten. I get it. Mm-hmm. But like, come on, man. Come on. Pick on the small market team for making a mistake. Pick on the guy that you like for making a mistake. Pick on the guy that you align with in other areas outside of sports, right? Pick on him, but you won't. And that's the only point that I'm trying to make, man. Like, it's so frustrating. That's why I don't watch ESPN. I hate them.
But that's the same thing, and I'm getting on the train with you on this one. That was the same thing when Cuban had literally the Animal House in his organization.
Yeah,
it was so like under the radar. I mean, we're talking like a Nuka Brown Sanders in Madison Square Garden stuff going bad that almost turned violent because they didn't pay attention to the signs that there might be a domestic abuse case or whatever was going on. So my point is that he gets to hire someone, a woman of African-American descent, to come in and clean up whatever it was, and this becomes cosmetics. I mean, let's just keep it a buck. You bring in the woman, you bring in the minority, to sweep up some garbage, and it makes for good polish. I just gonna keep it a buck. But should he not have been skull dragged throughout the league like Sterling was, or like
Sarver or Dolan for anything?
Okay. Yeah.
Let's hear. I want to hear Eric because he's going to add some levity to this. I mean, some.
No. There's a few differences here, and I'll just point it out from the beginning. One thing, Cuban didn't run from it, right? When it came to light, he addressed it, and he owned up to it. Not that he shouldn't have been. Something should have happened. I agree with that, but it wasn't the same situation. Sarver kind of tried to shove it under the rug. Sterling was on tape, so that was just forget it like that.
There's always context and nuance, but I'm talking about just we're talking about just the moves, the front office moves, right?
Oh
Like,
yeah, from right. If it depends. Obviously, he's the face of that franchise, right? Mark Cuban is one owner who's definitely the face of the franchise, even bigger than Luka. Like at least here in the United States, Mark Cuban is a bigger name than Luka Doncic. So
Yeah.
especially in the public, right? So he's the face of the franchise. So I agree with that, Craig. Like if he's the one that's truly making all these decisions, if he's not letting his GM do the job, then yes, he should be killed for the personnel moves that he's made because they haven't worked. But to Ty's point about the other stuff that was going on, the office stuff and all the like you said, the animal house, frat house type of dealings that was going on in the in Dallas, that he handled it better than the other guys. And I think that's one reason why people weren't so hard to be like, oh, we need to get on him for this, or they were terrible. He didn't deny it. He stood up to it. He said we have to make changes. It's kind of like you see this too in certain in other parts of media. Like I remember when all the sexual, harassment stuff was coming out, and then you had someone like Kevin Spacey who didn't handle it the right way, and then you had Louis C.K. who kind of did, right? He was kind of like, yeah, okay, I understand it. They still got in trouble for it though. That's the difference. They still had their careers massaged or.
But that's kind of the point that I was trying to make. If we talk about that piece, right? He took accountability for it. He went out and he did the same thing the NHL did, right? And I don't want to turn it to that here,
right.
But you went out. You got, like Ty said, a black female to kind of massage it, right? But that's the type of thing I'm talking about, right? ESPN will just, oh well, it's okay because he hired a sister and she's a female and she's going to blibbity blibbity blah, right? Because sometimes your ideologies align, we kind of give you a pass for something that would get blown up, even if the other two people that were mentioned did the same thing because of history. Because we love Mark Cuban, Shark Tank, and he's always doing the best, and you get a pass for that.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think that's where sometimes the lines get crossed. And Eric, you and I had a personal conversation offline a couple weeks ago about where lines get blurred, right? And then that bleeds into how you cover. In the sense of the media or sports media, how you then in turn cover someone because you have a friendship. And we're Charles. No, I'm not saying Mark Cuban and ESPN have a friendship, but you know what I'm saying. But like we look at Charles Barkley and Mike, right? Best of friends, besties forever. The minute, and I love Mike. Everyone knows I love Michael Jordan. But the minute Charles Barkley criticized him, all of a sudden they're not friends anymore. That's Charles Barkley's job, and it's got to be like, what is it, CNN? You got to be fair and balanced, right? ESPN, in that sense, should be fair and balanced when it comes to things pertaining to Mark Cuban or anyone that they like. And I know I'm shooting over.
They do like Mark. They don't like Dolan at all.
I know that I'm kind
of
jumping out of context here, but it's still there in that sense. That's all.
That's the other wrinkle, though. Shark Tank is on ABC, which is a Disney-owned company, which is so ESPN.
I forgot about that.
See, you have all of that involved too. So they're kind of protecting their brand.
Their brand and their assets, yeah.
Right. He's on one of our big shows. So
I didn't mean to go that deep, but it's just like somebody's got.
No, hey, that's fine. I have no problem discussing this stuff. So that's.
I think if you just took it, I mean, let's say we remove the whole harassment, and the front office stuff away. I just think from a basketball standpoint, and I've been saying this. I said it early in the show. I just think he's ran the Mavericks bad. I mean, he's hired people that were not, friendly with the coach at the time, who was Rick Carlisle, clearly an NBA champion coach, guy with an impressive resume. People love Rick Carlisle, as a basketball mind and as your lead coach. He comes from good stock, being with Boston. He's got an impressive resume. And Mark hired some front office guy who I think was the GM who had a shaky past. I don't know the details of it, but then that trickled down into the coaching, and Carlisle became somewhat, from what they say, was a puppet to this guy because he was telling him how to go handle Luka, And now we're in the Knick territory. I'm just keeping it a buck. We're in Knick territory.
Totally fair.
We as Knick fans have been crying and taking aspirin and probably doing some narcotics on the side to tolerate. So, we go from Cuban having the great years, that led to a championship, similar to the Knicks having the great years of Patrick Ewing, and those 90s teams didn't result in a chip, but we still live on that tale of what was great about the Knicks during that time. So we remove the championship from Mark, and he's like the Knicks, the decision making. Because he's self-proclaimed even on Shark Tank, because, I've watched the show a little bit. And he said, I've made terrible business deals. He said some very bad business deals. And I'm like, well, yeah, the Mavs is kind of looking like one of them now, because you not only, like I said, sans the internal front office dynamic. We're talking just basketball alone. You didn't run back the team. Like I said, that was one of the things. Okay, you were being cheap. You didn't want to pay the luxury tax. That's fine. We find ourselves still in the same situation with Jalen Brunson, where you held your money instead of investing in a player that you clearly know was an upgraded talent over anything other than Luka Doncic you had left on the squad. That's true. It was imperative that you say, well, let's reassess this team. Who do we have that's anywhere near Jalen Brunson's caliber? So should we keep him? And you basically were banking on him not being the same player or not being good, and to come back and give you a discount. And NBA players, when they're driven, they're not going to. They want when do you play the best in your contract year? Somebody's going to pay you. And he probably thought that, Jalen's just going to, love being here and love being with Mark. And it's like, that's not sound business still in basketball. And his decision-making, you double down and you bring in Kyrie Irving. Forget the name on the back of the jersey. Who in the NBA as an organization, because this happened during free agency when Kevin Durant went to Jersey, nobody wanted to sign Kyrie Irving in the entire league. He got on the Nets because KD was coming. That's the only reason. KD had to package himself like a Whopper with an extra fry. Kyrie was the extra fry in order to get him on a team. So I'm asking Mark, what in the blazing hell would you go and say? And not that Dorian Finney-Smith is a great player. Not that Dinwiddie's a great player. But you at least had guys that were working towards they're competent players. They kind of fit the little bit of mold. They're three-point shooters.
Exactly, yeah.
And the ball. They're not going to make you have to build a whole different dynamic around two players that are ball handle heavy. So Mark has made bad basketball decisions. If we were to grade the Mavericks outside of drafting Luka Doncic, outside of that, they are at least a C- or worse.
Yeah. No, that's completely fair. He's been they didn't draft him, although you believe that trade was done beforehand, but the Hawks technically drafted him. They drafted Trae Young and then they did the trade. So, but yeah, that's it right now. He's the guy that you could look to, that the pick that he made that has worked out. Hardaway is a good player, but again, what are you doing there? Signing Reggie Bullock.
Getting Frank, your favorite player, Frank Ntilikina.
Right. See, I don't even remember him as an NBA player anymore.
Because he's not. He's really not anymore.
I know. Then, the KP trade, doing that, again, who knows what would have happened if he waited a little longer not to get rid of him, because KP's starting to play well now. So who knows what would happen? Maybe trading him too early out of there. But again, forcing Carlisle and forcing KP to play a style that really isn't his style, because to fit in with Doncic.
And Luka really didn't want him there. We can just keep it real. That's what it was.
Yep.
He wanted him gone.
Yep. And then with Carlisle as well, it's turning out that I think there was friction between Luka and Rick Carlisle, and that's why Carlisle's not there anymore either.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that have gone on, not taking control of Doncic while he was young enough and being like, hey, this is how we do things here. Don't worry, we'll take care of you. We'll build around you. So it's been a very, very tough. They won in 2011, right? So it's been 12 years since they won an NBA title, and he didn't draft Dirk; he inherited Dirk. So
Yeah.
Dirk was picked before he owned the Mavericks.
Yeah.
So a lot of that, and I mean, but we can go back to that too. Not keeping Steve Nash, right? He could have kept Steve Nash.
He kept Steve. I'm
Didn't
telling
keep
you, he's
Steve
made
Nash.
some bad decisions because Steve Nash. I mean, think about two-time MVP. Who? The minute I always tell people this, the minute you can get definitely once you get your point guard, once you can find a point guard, you have everything you need in this league. Because right now you're building around the mind of that point guard, and now you're giving him weapons. That's what you should be doing. Now you got a guy who is also a pass first point guard in Nash. Brilliant basketball mind. He's one of the smartest players probably ever played a game. And you have Dirk. You don't ever break that up.
Nope.
Unless you catch him, with some yayo in the locker room and the feds raided Dallas. Even then, you lied for him. You say that was a digital tape and it wasn't really him. You clone somebody and let them get arrested and keep Steve Nash. You don't get rid of Steve Nash.
And they were best friends. Like him and Dirk were best friends. Like it was perfect. It was like a perfect marriage.
Think about that. Both dudes are some of the most efficient shooting guys ever. They're 50, 40, 90 guys. How did you let that go? The Knicks have been killing to have two players. People don't understand Nick Payne. Knicks just want one star. You have the ability when you get two.
You drafted them. It wasn't even that you drafted both.
You just pissed me the HE hockey stick off when you can get two studs and you go, nah. The arrogance to say, nah, let that go. And the Knicks have had our first point guard since Mark
Jackson.
Stephon. And
Stephon.
We're talking like we've had 3 point guards in the last 50 years almost.
Yep.
And he had, like I said, the decision making. He should have been, actually, I ain't being funny with this. He should have been ran out of the league for when he was thinking about even signing DeAndre Jordan. The thought of signing DeAndre Jordan is just baffling. Like, I would have been glad the Clippers kidnapped him and took him back. Because talk about saving yourself from an inflicted gun wound. That's a self-inflicted gunshot. Because who puts a bag and wants DeAndre Jordan? A guy who's only been as great as Chris Paul.
Yeah.
Would you give him $20 million a year? And
now he's like a clown. He's such a clown.
He said that's one of those dudes that
such a clown, man.
I was never a fan of his, even when he was with the Clippers. I just thought he was so overrated because you're just a rim running dunker. You're a lob catcher. That's all you've ever been, and you can play defense. But to me, you're not this. You're just a great athletic big dude. That's all you are. You weren't this great basketball.
The signs were there. I remember for him in college. That's why he went in the second. He didn't go in the first round. He went in the second round. And those were the signs for him in the second round, coming in the second round. So we could talk about bad decisions, but made by all these franchises all night. But we don't have that kind of time. Mm-hmm. So we're gonna have to bow out of this episode. But it was fun. It was fun to talk about.
It was really good tonight.
It was a good conversation. Again, Knicks are in the playoffs, 5th seed. Don't have to worry about a play-in, so we don't have to worry about possibly losing one of those games and being out of it as soon as we were in it. so that's a good sign. We should be talking about the playoffs the next time we record, right? Yeah.
I think so. Dallas up 117-112, 3 minutes left. Let's pray for Dallas. All Knicks be Dallas fans tonight. I love you, Luka.
Kyrie, I love you too.
Pin all the movies you want, Kyrie.
Yes, please.
Win the damn game, Kyrie.
Please just give us. I love the draft. So if we don't have a first round pick, I'm gonna be really sad.
Yeah, I'm gonna be sitting here like really like eating some greasy popcorn, doing nothing. Because I always wait around for our Knick pick. And then that's the thing. Because to go out and go, well, it's actually in Barclays now, but New Yorkers get real riled up, and it's like
know.
this thing. That was last year where I was really mad. I'm like, we didn't pick nobody, so I was like, I really want to pick this year.
Yup, but I guess, like I said, if we don't have a pick, then Josh Hart was our first round pick, and I guess looking back, that wasn't such a bad thing. Yeah, pretty good thing.
Pretty good pick, that's for sure.
All right, so Craig, let them know where they can talk to you, man.
You can find me on all Knicked Up fan page on, I guess, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, anywhere else you may have us, Eric. And you can find me on Twitter at Trays_Sun28.
All right, Ty, your turn.
Find me at Genius Scribble on Twitter. You can find me on our All Knicked Up fan page, where I'm putting out content, doing polls. I'm expanding my game, so you guys got to come and hit me up and start chirping. Let us know what you think, or any show ideas, etc. You guys may think that we should start orchestrating. Get at me. It's all good.
Yeah, Ty's been the one recently posting all the stuff on the fan page, so it's not me, guys, it's him. so if you created something on the All Knicked Up fan page, it's Ty's words. So it's fun. Yeah, that's the place. We'd like to really start growing the show. So if you guys start going over there and interacting with us, you can post there yourselves. As long as you're a member of the group, you can post your own stuff up there as well. We have conversations. Joe has posted some stuff a few times. Yes. I think Bob has even posted a few things every now and then. So definitely hop on and do that over there. We have a show page as well. The fan pages for the fans, the show pages where any information we have regarding the show, where the podcast also will be posted, where the live streams, these are all listed there as well. So if you just want to go back and check out all of the shows, you can go do it there in a nice linear format. Don't have to go searching for them anywhere else. Like I said, we're also on YouTube. You can watch the show on Twitter. Check us out all over the place. The Twitter handle for the show is, as you see on the screen right there, all_Knicked_up. My Twitter handle, if you want to speak directly to me, is @FinaleE33. It's spelled Finale 33. You see it there on the screen. Also, I do a fandom pop culture podcast called Straight Outta Gotham @straight_O_G on Twitter. If you want to interact with me there, I'll post. Recently, I posted polls about certain things going on in fandom. I talk Star Wars there, comic book movies, all that fun stuff. You guys can check that out on I can't talk @straight_O_G on Twitter. And I believe that's it. That's all we're going to talk about. So unless you guys have anything else.
123, 119.
All right. So for Ty and Craig, I'm Eric. You're watching All Knicked Up. See you next time.